Good afternoon. We are here for another meeting for our Mediumship Literature Group. My name is Sandra Ferreira. If you would like to join us, you're welcome. You can contact me through my page on Facebook, Revenant, or my website, revenant.world, and I'll be happy to add you to our group. We are reading the Gospel According with Spiritism by Allan Kardec. And today we are going to continue reading. We are on chapter 27 of the Gospel According with Spiritism. Let's do our initial prayer and we jump from it. Dear God, the spirits of the light, our spiritual guides, thank you very much for this day and for the lives of everyone in here. Please help us to understand the things we need to learn from this reading and help us to apply in our daily lives as well. Thank you very much for your unconditional love. Amen. All right, so who would like to start reading?
Darcy.
Hold on, I have to find the...
I'll go after you about that. I'll do one paragraph.
A page. You can't just do a paragraph.
My accent annoying myself. Okay.
It doesn't annoy me.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Doesn't annoy me either.
Thanks, David.
There you go. Chapter 27?
Yes.
Right.
And you shall receive.
Okay.
That's the title of the chapter.
Hold on, I'm a little disorganized here. Okay. Ask and it shall be given. The quality of prayers, the efficacy, I can never pronounce that word, of prayer, the action of prayer, transmission of thought, intelligible prayers, prayer for the dead and for suffering spirits, instructions from the spirits, the way in which to pray, happiness proportioned by prayer. The quality of prayers. 1, and when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corner of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their rewards. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. But when you pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking, but not ye therefore like unto them. For your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Matthew 6, 5-8. 2, and when ye stand praying, forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. Mark 11:25-26. And he hath spoke this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank ye that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice a week, I give tithes of all that I possess, and the publican standing far off would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God be merciful unto me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to this house justified rather than the other, for everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Luke 18, 9-14. 4, Jesus clearly defined the quality of prayer. He said that when you pray, you should not make yourself conspicuous, but rather pray in secret. Do not prolong your prayers, because it is not by the multiplicity of the words that you will be heard, but by their sincerity. Before praying, if you have anything against another, forgive them, seeing that prayer is not pleasing to God if it does not come from the heart, cleansed of all sentiments which are contrary to charity. Finally, pray with humility, as did the publican, and not with pride, as did the Pharisee. Look at your defects, not at your qualities. And if you compare yourself to others, look for what is bad in yourself. See chapter 10, items 7 and 8. Number 5, therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire, when ye pray, believe ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Mark 11:24. 6, there are those who contest the effectiveness of prayer on the grounds that as God knows all our needs, it is useless to enumerate them to him. Those who think this then add that, seeing that everything in the universe is linked together by eternal laws, then our petitions cannot change God's decrees. Beyond all doubt, there are natural and immutable laws which cannot be annulled at the caprice of each individual. But from this fact to the belief that all circumstances in life are submitted to fatality is a long step indeed. If it were like that, then man would be a passive instrument without free will or initiative. In this hypothesis, it would only remain for man to bow down his head in submission before all occurrences without making any effort to avoid them, and should not try to ward off dangers. God did not grant reason and intelligence for men not to use them. Willpower for him not to desire things, nor activity for him to remain inactive. As man is free to act one way or the other for himself and towards others, the consequences depend on what he does or does not do. By this initiative, there are events which forcibly escape fatality and yet do not destroy the harmony of the universal laws, just as the quickening or slowing down of the pendulum of a clock does not annul the law of movement upon which the mechanism is based. God then can accede to certain petitions without destroying the immunity of those laws which govern the whole. As consent, it is always dependent on his will. 7, from the maxim, whatever you ask for through prayer will be granted. It would be illogical to conclude that one can receive just by asking, and unjust to accuse Providence if a request made is not conceded, because it is known what is best for our own good. That is what happens to a prudent father who refuses to give his son certain things which would be against his own interests. Generally, man only sees the present moment. Meanwhile, if the suffering is useful to our future happiness, then God will let us suffer, just as a surgeon allows a patient to suffer an operation which will cure him. What God will concede if we direct ourselves to him with confidence is courage, patience, and resignation. What he will also concede are the means of resolving situations with the help of ideas suggested to us by good spirits at God's instigation, whereby we retain the merit for the decisions taken. God helps all those who help themselves, according to the maxim, help yourself and the heavens will come to your aid. But he does not help those who, without using their own faculties, wait for outside assistance. Nevertheless, in most cases, what man desires is to be helped by miracles without any effort of his own. See chapter number 25, number 1 and following items. Eight, let us take an example. A man finds himself lost in the desert. Thirst is torturing him terribly. Fainting, he falls to the ground. He asks God to help him and waits. No angels will come to give him water. However, what does happen is that good spirit suggests the idea of picking himself up and taking one of the paths that are before him. By pure mechanical movement, uniting what is left of his strength, he gets up, walks, and discovers not far away a brook. On sighting this, he gains courage. If he has faith, he exclaims, "Thank you, dear God, for the idea you inspired and for the strength you gave me. If he is without faith, he will say, what a good ideal had. How lucky I was to take the right-hand path and not the one on the left. Chance sometimes serves one admirably. I must congratulate myself for the courage and for not being defeated. But you may ask why the Spirit did not say clearly, follow that path and you will find what you need. Why did the Spirit not show himself, guide him, and sustain him in his disanimation? In that way, the man would have been convinced of the intervention of providence. Firstly, so as to teach him that each person must help themselves and make use of their strength. Second, because the man doubted his existence, God put the confidence he had in him to the test, as well as testing his submission to his will. The man was in the situation of the child who falls down, and because someone is with him, starts to cry and waits to be picked up. If the same child saw no one, he would make the effort and get up by himself. If the angel which accompanied Tobias had said, I am sent by God to guide you on your journey and preserve you from all danger, then Tobias could claim no merit. In entrusting himself to his companion, he would not have even had to think, this is why the angel only made himself known after the return. Does somebody else feel like reading now?
Oh, where are we? I couldn't quite find.
You're at on page 269 if you're doing the PDF on number 9.
Chapter 27 on item 9. Since we stopped, any questions or comments so far about?
It's funny how I was thirsty right before that next page. That was very funny.
Yeah. So any questions or comments about the characteristics of prayer, effectiveness of prayer, effectiveness of prayer?
I like that it says that your sincerity is more important than the length of your prayer or even the words that are in it, right?
It's true.
Yeah. It's very important. There's a lot of religions that emphasize like rituals or memorizations or repetitions, and that, so the spirits are saying that this doesn't mean anything to God, because for me, I can share my own experience. When I say something that's repetitive, I stop thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean anything. You kind of just get lost in the words, but doesn't come from the heart. And it just, without feeling, without engagement on our thoughts, our spirit is not engaged. It's just a mechanical thing, and that's the reason why it's meaningless to God, because it doesn't come from the heart, and it's not something that we are fully involved, engaged. So any other comments or thoughts or questions? Okay, so we can continue. The action of prayer, transmission of thoughts. Number 9.
Oh, do you want me to do it, Darcy?
Sure, go ahead, Francis.
A few paragraphs. Okay. Prayer number 9. Prayer is an invocation through which, by means of thought, man enters into communication with the being to whom he directed it himself. This may be for the purpose of asking for something, giving thanks, or as glorification. We may pray for ourselves or for others, for the living or for the dead. Prayer addressed to God are heard by those spirits who are charged with execution of his will. All those addressed to good spirits are referred to God when someone prays to beings other than God. These are serving as mediator or intercessors, because nothing can happen without God's wishes. Number 10, Spiritism makes the act of prayer understandable by explaining how thought is transmitted, either when the spirit to whom we are praying comes to our help, or when her thoughts raises themselves up to this being. In order to understand what happens in this circumstance, it is necessary to consider all incarnate and discarnated being as immersed in the universal cosmic fluid which occupies space, as we on Earth are immersed in the atmosphere. This fluid receives an impulse from willpower, which is the vehicle of thought, just as air is the vehicle for sound, with the difference that the vibrations of air are circumscribed, whereas those of universal cosmic fluid extend infinitely. Okay, chapter number 27. So when a thought is directed at someone, either on Earth or in space, from an incarnate to a discarnate being, or vice versa, a fluidic current is established between them which transmit the thought from one to the other, just as air transmits sound. The energy content in the current remains proportional to the force being thought and the desire. This is how the spirits hear the prayer directed to them. Wherever they may be, it is also how spirits communicate amongst themselves, how they transmit their inspiration to us, and how contacts are established at the distance between incarnates. This explanation has in mind especially those who do not understand the utility of completely mystical prayer. It is not meant to simply materialize prayer, but rather to make its effect eligible by showing it can have direct and effective results. But this does not make it any the less subordinate to God's wishes. He being the supreme judge of all things, it is only through his wishes that the action of prayer may become effective. Number 11, it is through prayer that man obtains the assistance of God, good spirits who come running to sustain him in his good resolution and inspire the wholesome ideas. In this manner, he acquires the moral strength necessary to be able to surmount all difficulties and come back to the straight and narrow path should he at any time stray from it. By these means, he can also turn away from himself and all the evil which he attracts through his faults. For example, a man loses his health due to his excess and so leads a life of suffering till the termination of his days. Has he then the right to complain if he does not obtain the cure he so desires? No, because he could have found the strength to resist temptation through the act of prayer. Number 12, if we're divided the evils of life into two parts, one being those which man cannot avoid, and the other those tribulation of which he himself is the principal cause, due to carelessness and excess. See chapter number 5, item number 4. We would see that the number in the second group far exceed those in the first. So it is evident that man is the author of the greater part of these afflictions, and that they could be avoided if always behave with prudence and wisdom. It is no less certain that these miseries are the result of our infraction against God's laws, and that if we duly observe these laws, we will be completely happy. If we did not exceed the limit of what it is necessary for the satisfaction of our needs, we would not have the sicknesses which are provoked as a consequence of these excesses, nor would we experience the vicissitudes which derive from them. If we put a limit in our ambition, we will not have a fear ruin. If we do not desire to raise ourselves higher than we are able, we would not have to be afraid of falling. If we're humble, we will not suffer the deception of our pride. If we practice the law of charity, we will not be slanderers, jealous, or envious, and so would avoid arguments and fight. If we didn't know evil to anyone, with no need to fear vengeance, etc. Okay, next person.
You can continue. You're doing pretty well.
That's good.
Or the breath.
You did fine.
I like the last part though.
Fine.
I kind of connect with that. Okay, Catherine, it's your turn. Come on, you're good at that.
All right. So admitting that man can do nothing with respect to other evils and that prayer would be useless in ridding him of them, would it not mean a great deal to have the possibility of exempting ourselves from those ills which stem from our own behavior? Here it is easy to conceive the action played by prayer, which aims at attracting wholesome inspirations from the good spirits. And in this case, what the prayers do is not to remove the wrong from us, but turn us away from our bad thoughts, which causes us harm. The prayers in no way prevent the fulfilling of God's laws, nor do they suspend the course of the laws of nature. They stop us from infringing these laws by guiding our free will. Yet they act by default in an imperceptible manner, so as not to subjugate our free will. Man finds himself in the position of one who solicits good counsel and then puts it into action, but is always free to follow the advice or not. God desires it to be like this, so that man can have responsibility for his actions, thereby leaving him the merit of the choice between good and evil. This is what man can always be sure of obtaining if he asks fervently. And this is the kind of situation where, above all, the words "ask and it shall be given" can be applied. Could not the effects of prayer, even when reduced to those proportions, bring immense results? It has been reserved for Spiritism to prove its action through the revelation of the relationship existing between the physical and spiritual worlds. But its effects are not limited just to these results. Prayer is recommended by all spirits. To renounce it is to ignore the benevolence of God. To reject for oneself his assistance and for others the good that we can do. On attending to a request which has been addressed to him, God desires to recompense the intention, the devotion, and the faith of the one who prays. This is why the prayers of a good person have greater merit in God's eyes and are always more effective, because the corrupt and evil person cannot pray with the same fervor and confidence which comes only from a sentiment of true piety. From a selfish heart, the one who prays only from the lips there can come only words, and never a charitable impulse, which is what gives force to prayer. So clearly can this be understood, that on asking for the prayers of another person, instinctively preference will be given to those whose conduct, it is felt, will be more agreeable to God, because they will be more promptly heard. 14. As prayer exercises a type of magnetic action, it could be supposed that its effect would depend on fluidic power. However, this is not so. To be precise, spirits exercise this action on men so as to overcome any insufficiency in those who pray, either by direct influence of it in his aim, or by giving him momentarily an exceptional force when they judge him deserving of disgrace, or when it can be useful to them. The person who does not consider themselves sufficiently good as to exercise a wholesome influence should not refrain from praying for the good of another because of a mistaken belief of being unworthy to be heard. The consciousness of their own inferiority constitutes a test in humility, which is always pleasing to God, who then takes into account the charitable intention which animated their intention. Fervor and confidence in God are the first steps in the return to goodness, for which the good spirits feel themselves blessed in being able to offer stimulation. Prayer is repelled only from the prideful who deposit faith in their own power and merits, believing it is possible to superimpose themselves upon the will of the Eternal Father. 15. The power of prayer lies in the thought and does not depend on words, the place or the moment in which it is preferred. Therefore, it is possible to pray in all places at any time, alone or with others. The influence of a place or time is only felt according to the circumstances which favor the meditation. Communal prayer has more powerful action when all who are praying joining together in a heartfelt thought and envisage the same objective, since it is as if many beseeched together in one voice. But it will do no good for a large number of people to gather together for prayer if each one acts in isolation on their own account. 100 people can pray selfishly, whereas 2 or 3 joined by the same aspirations, praying like true brothers and sisters in Christ, will give more power to the prayer than would the 100 selfish persons. See chapter 28, items 4 and 5.
Any questions or comments about this part?
I think they did not a scientific experiment per se, but the study on, if I recall right, it was like about 200 monks coming to pray in the city of New York to reduce crime. And it did help, I think by a quarter or something. It was like a fifth, which is pretty significant statistically.
Yeah.
I heard something.
Yeah, I don't remember the details perfectly, but I think it is known.
I heard of that one, and I've heard of others too. It really is amazing.
Have you ever experienced that on your own lives?
I experienced on Sunday.
Yeah? Want to share?
Well, on Sunday, always, every Sunday, I can feel it's better day. Like, it doesn't matter if I work or not. It's just, you can feel, because I think there's more church open on Sunday. There's more people praying on Sunday. But I feel different on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a young guy in our town, and by young guy, I mean like 35 or something. And he had COVID. He was on a respirator in ICU. And it was at the point where the doctors had told his wife, get everything in order, and there's basically no hope left. And we did like an online prayer. We all lit candles, and we all, like, we're in this group, we all showed our little candle and prayer that we had set for him. And by the next day, he was doing better. A few days later, he was out of ICU, and about a week or a little over that, he was out of the hospital. So I mean, to me, for how terrible the situation was and how likely it was that he was going to pass, it just seemed like a rapid turnaround. But it was amazing feeling like the way that we all felt when we had our little candles, and you could feel the vibe, you could feel the power of it.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Darcy, because yeah, it's so real that it's physical. Because people think that, it's just like, it makes you feel better because you think you're doing something, or it's somehow like superstition, right? Some people that have never experienced the power of prayer think it's a superstition, and but yeah, when we experience things like that, I think we all have experienced multiple times. I experienced multiple times the power of prayer on my own life or the life of others that I have prayed for, and it is amazing how it is, how it changes things, how miracles happen you know, signs. We receive signs, right? When he asks for it.
Oh, yeah.
It is so unbelievable and amazing, and it is wonderful to feel that connection with God directly through prayer, and how God and the spirits interfere in our lives through our prayer, and to understand through this experience that we are agents on our own lives and each other's lives. Nothing is really set in stone. There are some things that are, you know, cannot be changed. For example, we are not going to become, you know, angels all of a sudden, or we are not going to become something that we are not. We are going through, we need to go through our trials one way or the other, but things can change radically through the power of prayer, not only in our individual lives, but collectively. Right? We are going through, we have mentioned this several times, we are going through a moment of crisis, collectively speaking, in our planet, right? And the power of prayer is very important. Sometimes we think that, oh, I'm not a politician, I'm not a scientist, I'm not someone that's powerful to do anything to change all these problems that we are going through. The environmental problems, the political problems. We have a war now with Russia and Ukraine. There's the pandemics. There's so much going on, and people get helpless or hopeless, forgetting that we have a huge power in our hands to change things, to change the course of things through our prayers, right? And responsibility that we have as well, as we have this experience already, as we are putting ourselves to serve spirits, as we are experiencing a spirituality in our own lives, we have the responsibility to intervene through our prayers to our words, to you know, the people around us, and to our planet, collectively speaking. So it's a wonderful thing, and it's something that we can never forget. What do you guys think about that? The beginning of that sector where they explain the action of prayer. Did you guys understood this whole fluidic transmission of thoughts? This is pretty scientific.
What did it say at the beginning?
The beginning of that sector, number 9, yes.
The fluid part is a new concept to me. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, so everything in the universe, both physical and spiritual, are interconnected. Before, science used to think that matter is separated from what is not matter. Whatever we cannot touch is not matter. So spirits, thoughts, feelings, all those things that we cannot touch is not matter, and is something completely separated from matter. Now, through quantum physics, through other even quantum chemistry, there's a lot of new science that is really, you know, proven, has really proven that there's no really separation. What the center of the atom is energy. So the essence of this fluidic thing that it mentions here is energy. Is something is half matter, half no matter, is an intermediate vehicle, the same way that light is is transmitted through is transmitters of sound and other things. So so the connection between the material and the spiritual world have all those different layers until it becomes 100% dematerialized, which is the ultimate non-material thing is God. He is the most purest energy there is in the universe, but between us and him or her, we have all those layers, and the more we need different kinds of layers to go one step or the other. For example, we have the material physical body, we have our fluidic body, our perispirit, what they call perispirit, and we have our spirit. So our perispirit is somewhat material, but not tangible like our physical body. And it makes the connection between our spirit and our body. So, and after that, we have other layers. And so when we pray, when we think, when we communicate with spirits through mediumship or any other way, we are using this fluidic connection through our thoughts to communicate with them, to connect with them. So when we pray is a concrete things, like we kind of gather spirits, good spirits around us or around those people that are in need that we are praying for, and we create that connection through our thoughts and our prayers. So it's really physical, and this fluidic thing that I mentioned is that energetic thing that there is in the universe everywhere, between planets, between us and spirits, between the matter and the spirits, and that interconnects everything. So that's why quantum physics now says that the universe is an indivisible whole. We used to think as things being a collective, an addition of individual things, right? We have like our cells, our bodies, the collection, the addiction of the individual cells or different organs. But quantum physics comes to explain that we cannot separate. If we separate our heart from the rest of the body, that heart doesn't mean anything anymore, unless it goes to another body and becomes another whole. But when we are in a group, like Darcy have shared her experience praying for that individual who were sick, the whole group, even though you guys are not in the same room, you're not touching, even in the same chairs, same floor, nothing. It's just virtual, and the connection was through the thoughts and the prayers, and was still tangible, right? The connection was tangible. You felt the energy connecting all of you and connecting you guys with the recipient. So how you felt that? It's because this fluidic thing that connects all of us. But when we put the intention, it becomes even stronger. It acquires purpose. So as everything in the universe adds, it works by magnet, right? When we have the same, like several cells working for the same organ, they become together and they are part of that same organ. Why? But because of the magnetic intention of working together for the same organ and for the same body, etc., etc. So the fluidic thing exists regardless, but when we put the intention, it becomes even stronger or changes courses, changes the physics of things, including diseases, including relationships, including war, including environment, including anything. We can change anything because there's no separation between spirit and matter. And the prayer is a very strong experience, very strong example of that.
From my understanding, what I had felt or heard or like seen or like was that there was kind of a, I don't know how to say this, but it's as if planet Earth had a web, you know, like a mesh around it. And that, you know, there are certain central points of energy. So I knew that, you know, we were all connected in forms of energy, you know, through quantum entanglement. We've proved that through science, you know, double split experience that also helped us realize that consciousness had an impact on matter. Just the fact of observing matter actually makes it react differently. So that I knew, but really the concept of fluidity, the fluid, you know, was kind of new to me. And now I'm trying to make connections. I'm trying to think, you know, like when, for example, people do seances and then there's ectoplasm. Yeah. Is that fluid matter? You know?
Yes. It's a different layer, I would say, because I don't know if you guys remember in previous chapters, it mentions, and also in the Book of Spirits, they go even deeper on that, but it has mentioned in previous chapters, the concept of our existence, like the more purified we are as spirits, the less material we become. Our bodies becomes less and less material. So what is matter to us is just our understanding of matter because of our level of evolution, right? We are evolved to the level that we are really connected with a very concrete body and concrete things. But matter for other spirits from other planets or spirits that are not incarnated and they are evolved enough are different, are less tangible, less gross, like less brute, I would say. But and that's why we make that distinctions. Like, yes, it's matter in different levels. So this fluid, when we, did you ever see sound? Can we see sound?
I don't think so.
No. But we feel it, right? It's like now through science, for the longest time, we already know that sound is concrete, is waves of frequency, right? That resonates through the air and through transmissions of waves through matter that's sparse that we cannot even see. So is matter, is material, but it's not tangible. But it's a different concept of matter we are not used to, because we are used to something very concrete, like, but it's as real as this fluidic thing. that they are talking about, that happens when in transmission of thoughts and prayers and everything we do, and feelings.
It really gets me thinking too, right? If there is a form of humidity in the air, is that it, right? Because water is a great conductor, and we are 90% made of water, so we are great conductors. Mm-hmm. And then my mind just goes to a million places. Like, I lived in Vegas for a while, and it was very materialistic, and I'm like, it was hella dry over there.
Yes. So it's not the fluid that we are used to, like liquid fluid. It's a energetic fluid. It doesn't depend on particles of water or anything like that. It's energetic fluid, but nevertheless can be even detected sometimes. Do you guys ever seen photographies where you see shadows of spirits and stuff? That's the fluid of that spirit. And how much that there's so many things we don't see because our eyes is very limited, because we are limited in our level of evolution. But we can see why we can see more through our clairvoyance, because our spirit is less material and less limited, and we can see more. But we still cannot see everything through our spirit, because our spirit is also limited. That's why we have this body. That's why we are on this planet. That's why we suffer. That's why we get sick. We are not perfect. We are still in a stage of evolution that's very low. All of us in this planet. But there's a lot of things that happens around us that we cannot see, but is very physical, including this fluidic thing, the transmission of thought. Telepathy is a concept that's scientifically accepted for centuries now, right? Telepathy is the transmission of thought through this.
Is it really? Because psychiatry is not having it. I have a young man who was sent to first psychotic episode because he thought that he could read my mind. He was sent to this special program for psychosis because of that. I'm not sure the science and psychiatry are catching up together.
Yeah, I think there are different layers of it. They're different. I understand what you're saying, but sometimes we all experience telepathy. We all can read each other's minds to some extent. What we do in psychic experience is that, right? Is the reading of each other's thought. When we are thinking about a friend, all of a sudden that friend calls you, someone that you don't talk for the longest time. What is that? This is telepathy. When a mother goes to work and the baby is at home crying and her breast starts producing milk and leaking milk, what is that? This is telepathy, right? It's a real thing. We all experience that. Either if we acknowledge or we pay attention or not. But the difference is that when someone is in a psychotic state, goes beyond what we are, used to. Because Jung, I really like the definition of Jung of psychosis, because Jung says that when someone goes in a psychotic state, it really because they lost their ego, they completely lost their connection with their ego, so they are submersed 100% on the collective, which we all are. We all are submersed in the collective. But when we have our ego, our connection with our ego, in a good sense, not ego to be egotistic or anything like that, but ego in the sense that we know who we are, our individuality, our boundaries, and our connection with reality, and all that. When we have that dimension, the collective becomes integrated with reality. But when someone is in a psychotic state, they are 100% immersed in a collective, they lose themselves. And that's the problem of psychosis. They lose themselves, they become so vulnerable, they become so scared. That's why they have a lot of hallucinations and delusions. They always have these grandiose ideas that they are someone from space or Jesus Christ. What is that? This is all archetypes of the collective. But they are 100% lost on that. And they cannot make sense of it. They cannot integrate this collective on their own lives anymore. And that constitutes psychosis. So it's not that those things are not real or not 100% absent from our reality as human beings in general. Is the extent of it, the extent of how much something is affecting someone's functionality. That's what constitutes pathology. If you are okay, if you are happy, if you are functioning, if you are being able to have relationships, if you are being able to work and be happy and deal with take care of yourself and make good judgments and all that, that constitutes health, mental health, right? When you're not capable of doing any of those things, that constitutes mental health or pathology, but any kind of a pathology, especially psychosis. So that's why, Catherine, there's some similarities. People talk about seeing spirits, they talk about talking with their ancestors, they talk about telepathy, they talk about all those things. Is their way to express what they're experiencing, which we all experience to some extent, but they are experiencing unleashed because they lost their ego. So that's the difference. So we are going to wrap it up, our group, our literature group today. We are going to continue on the chapter 27 next week. We are going to start on the number 16, which is the intelligible prayers from this chapter 27, from the Gospel according with Spiritism. And we can continue to talk about that as well. So everybody is welcome to join us. People that are home watching us through the YouTube, you are welcome to join our live groups. You can contact me through Revenant on my page, Revenant on Facebook, or Revenant.world in my website, and I'll be happy to add you to our weekly groups. So let's do our final prayer and finalize our group for today. Dear God, thank you for this day, for this opportunity to be here together, learning from you, learning from spirits. Those wonderful teachings, those wonderful guidances from spirits, helping us to understand the Gospels from Jesus and helping us to understand the mysteries of life, and in order for us to grow and evolve. Help us to put in practice those things in our daily lives. Help us to be better prayers, to use the power of prayer to help each other and to help our world to evolve and to be closer to you. Thank you for your unconditional love and help in every step of our lives. Thank you very much. Amen. All right, so I hope you all can join us next week at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you all next Monday. Bye.